Imagine waking up every day excited, not anxious, because you know exactly what you're building, how you're doing it, and why it matters. You're not reacting to life, you're designing it. You're not settling, you're setting the pace. This isn't motivation fluff. This is a mindset shift. It's time to think big, act bold, and live free. Step 1, your thinking shapes your life. Your thinking shapes your life because every result you experience begins first as a thought. Everything you do, everything you become is the direct outcome of what goes on in your mind on a consistent basis. The quality of your thoughts directly influences the quality of your decisions, your habits, your relationships, and ultimately your results. If you constantly think in terms of limitation, fear, and doubt, your actions will reflect that. You'll hesitate when you should act, you'll settle when you should strive, and you'll talk yourself out of opportunities because your internal narrative tells you you're not ready, not good enough, or not capable. The mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant there grows. If you feed it with powerful, expansive thoughts, it responds by expanding your view of what's possible. You begin to imagine more, dream more, and aim higher. The world doesn't change first. Your thinking does. And then your world follows. You stop asking, can I really do this? And you begin asking, how can I make this happen? That one shift, small in words, massive in meaning, can alter the entire trajectory of your life. When you begin thinking big, you're not just entertaining lofty ideas. You're training your mind to operate at a higher level. You're programming yourself to look beyond survival and towards significance. Big thinkers don't just see what is. They see what could be. They don't let current circumstances dictate their future. Instead, they build a future so clear in their mind that it starts pulling them forward like gravity. Your thinking becomes your inner GPS, guiding you through adversity and back toward possibility whenever life tries to throw you off course. Most people underestimate the sheer power of a single dominant thought. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you're meant for more, your brain starts seeking evidence to support that belief. If you tell yourself you're stuck, it'll find evidence of that too. Your subconscious mind is always listening, always watching, and always responding to the stories you tell it. So if you want a better life, you must first tell a better story to yourself. The most successful people in the world aren't necessarily the most talented or the most connected. They're the ones who learn to manage their mind and direct their thoughts toward growth, impact, and purpose. They realized early on that the greatest limits are not external, they're internal. And once those inner limits are removed, there is no telling how far you can go. Your current thinking has brought you to your current results. If you want new results, you need new thinking. Think bigger, think sharper, think stronger. Because the size of your thinking will always determine the size of your life. Step 2, bold action beats perfect plans. Bold action beats perfect plans because movement, even when messy, creates momentum, and momentum is more valuable than precision in the early stages of any journey. Too many people become trapped in the illusion of needing a flawless strategy before they begin. They spend weeks, months, sometimes years perfecting a plan that never sees the light of day because they're afraid of making mistakes. They want certainty. They want guarantees. But in life, there are no guarantees, only opportunities. And opportunities don't wait for perfection. They favor those who move. When you take bold action, you learn faster. You don't just study from the sidelines. You enter the arena and gain firsthand knowledge. The bold decision to start, to try, to speak up, to step out, brings with it immediate feedback, and that feedback is more valuable than theory. Action reveals what works and what doesn't. It exposes your strengths, tests your resilience, and sharpens your instincts. You begin to understand the landscape not from guesswork, but from real experience. And with every step forward, you become more capable, more confident, more prepared for what's next. Perfect plans often become prisons. They keep people stuck in analysis, afraid to move until everything is lined up just right. But that moment rarely comes. Circumstances change, people shift, markets evolve. The best plans, no matter how well thought out, eventually collide with reality. Bold action, on the other hand, adapts, it responds, it moves, it grows, it learns. A bold person can take an imperfect plan and create success because they're willing to adjust on the fly. A hesitant person can have the best plan in the world and still go nowhere because they never take the first step. Action has energy to it. It signals to your brain that you're serious. It tells the world that you're committed, and it creates a ripple effect. People respond to energy. They notice boldness. They lean in when they see someone taking risks, pushing boundaries, doing things most people only talk about. Boldness has a magnetic quality. It attracts resources, support, and opportunities that never appear to the passive observer. There's a kind of clarity that only comes from movement. You can study a map all day long, but you'll never truly know the terrain until you start walking it. The moment you move, you start to see things you couldn't see before. New paths emerge. Unexpected doors open. That first act of boldness might not take you exactly where you thought you'd go, but it gets you out of your head and into the real world, where real progress is made. Waiting for the perfect plan often masks fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. But bold action cuts through fear. It says, I may not know everything, but I know enough to begin. It turns fear into fuel. It makes progress inevitable. Because even if you fail, you're failing forward, gaining wisdom and insight that cannot be found in theory alone. Step 3, clarity is the launch pad of freedom. Clarity is the launch pad of freedom, because without a clear understanding of what you want, where you're going, and why it matters, you become a passenger in your own life. You drift instead of drive. You react to circumstances instead of creating them. Most people are overwhelmed not because they're doing too much, but because they're unclear about what actually matters. When your mind is clouded with conflicting priorities, vague goals, and the noise of the world, you waste precious time and energy on things that don't move you forward. But the moment you gain clarity, true, focused clarity, you begin to take control. You stop spinning in circles and start moving with direction. Clarity simplifies decision-making. It becomes the filter through which you evaluate every opportunity, every task, every relationship. When you're clear on your vision, it becomes easier to say no to distractions. You stop chasing shiny objects or comparing your path to someone else's, because you know exactly what you're working toward. Every action becomes more intentional, more aligned, more powerful. And in that alignment, you begin to feel a sense of peace, even in the middle of pressure, because you're no longer pulled in 100 different directions. You're locked in on what matters most. Freedom doesn't just come from external achievement. It comes from internal alignment. And that alignment begins with clarity. What does success actually look like for you? What kind of life do you want to build? What are your core values? What kind of work makes you come alive? These questions aren't philosophical fluff. They're the foundation of freedom. When you're unclear, you live by default. When you're clear, you live by design. You don't just set goals. You set goals that are meaningful to you, and that's what gives your efforts power and purpose. Clarity eliminates confusion. It turns chaos into order. When you know the why behind your goals, you can endure almost any how. You stop second-guessing yourself because you're rooted in something deeper than surface motivation. You begin to operate from vision, not from fear. And with that clarity, your confidence grows. Not because you know every step ahead, but because you know the destination. And that's enough to keep moving. In a world full of noise, clarity is rare, and that's why it's so powerful. Most people don't take the time to sit still long enough to truly think. They don't reflect, they don't define, they don't decide. So they wander. But the moment you take ownership of your vision and get specific about what freedom means to you, whether that's financial independence, creative fulfillment, time, autonomy, or emotional peace, you begin to strip away everything. And what's left is a life that feels lighter, stronger, and more meaningful. Clarity doesn't mean you have every answer. It means you've asked the right questions. It means you've chosen direction over drift. It means that you've created a blueprint not for perfection, but for intention. And that intention is what turns vague desires into tangible results. It's what takes you from a life of reaction to a life of creation. Step 4. Discipline fuels boldness. Discipline fuels boldness because courage without consistency is short-lived. Boldness is not just about one-time acts of bravery or spontaneous decisions made in moments of inspiration. True boldness is sustained by a deep reservoir of self-trust, and that trust is built through disciplined action over time. When you know you can rely on yourself to follow through, to do the hard things, to stick to what matters, even when no one is watching, you become a different kind of person. You become someone who doesn't need to wait for confidence or permission to move forward. You move because it's who you are. Discipline is the quiet force behind bold choices. It's the early morning grind when no one's clapping. It's the repetition of small, often boring tasks that compound into extraordinary results. Most people want the outcomes of bold living, the success, the freedom, the respect, but they skip the part where it's built, and it's built in the daily, unseen moments of discipline, the workouts you don't want to do, the extra hour you spend refining your craft, the decision to stay focused when distraction whispers your name. Discipline sharpens you. It strengthens your mental muscle so that when the time comes to step into risk, into challenge, into opportunity, you're ready, not by accident, but by design. It's easy to be bold when everything is going well. It's easy to speak up when you feel strong. But what about when fear creeps in, when doubt shows up, when things get hard? That's when discipline becomes your anchor. Because you've trained, you've prepared, you've made a habit out of pushing your limits. You've rehearsed resilience day after day. Discipline conditions your nervous system to act even when your emotions want to retreat. It teaches you that discomfort is not a danger. It's a signal that growth is happening. Bold people aren't fearless. They're practiced. They've done hard things enough times that it no longer surprises them. They're not hoping it'll be easy. They've already accepted that it won't be. But they move anyway, not because they feel like it, but because they've trained themselves to do what needs to be done, regardless of mood or motivation. And that's what separates wishful thinking from real progress. Discipline transforms effort into identity. It turns intentions into lifestyle. When you have discipline, you don't need to wait for the stars to align. You become the one who aligns them. You stop depending on hype and start depending on habits. Discipline turns your goals from something you talk about into something you live. It's the proof that you mean business, not just on the days you feel good, but especially on the days you don't. Boldness without discipline is like a matchstick. It burns bright for a moment and fades. But boldness with discipline is like a roaring fire, fueled daily, steady, growing stronger with every log of effort you throw in. That kind of boldness doesn't just make a move, it keeps moving. It doesn't just show up, it stays. Step 5, to fail forward, not backward. Fail forward, not backward, because failure is not the enemy, it's a teacher, a guide, a necessary part of growth that most people misinterpret. The difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck isn't that one group avoids failure and the other doesn't. It's that the successful have learned how to fall in the right direction. They've reframed failure not as a stop sign, but as feedback, not as a judgment on their worth, but as information on their process. Failing forward means using every setback as a stepping stone, extracting the lesson, adjusting your approach, and continuing to move. It's the refusal to let failure define you or derail you. Most people have been conditioned to fear failure. They were taught to avoid mistakes, to get it right the first time, to play it safe. But that mindset builds a fragile foundation. It encourages perfectionism and paralyzes progress. Failing backward is what happens when a person internalizes the failure. They take it personally. They say things like, "I'm not cut out for this," or "This always happens to me," and they retreat. They shrink. They stop trying. They let one experience shape their identity. But failing forward means separating the outcome from your worth. It means saying, "This didn't work, but I'm still moving," or "That was a tough lesson, but now I know better." The path to success is almost never a straight line. It's trial and error. It's risk and recalibration. And the only way to develop the kind of resilience required for a meaningful life is by walking through failure, not around it. When you fail forward, you begin to build something stronger than skill. You build character. You build grit. You learn how to keep your composure when things fall apart. You learn how to make decisions in uncertainty. You learn how to persevere, not because things are easy, but because what we're aiming for is worth it. Failing forward also sharpens your vision. Each setback reveals something you didn't see before about yourself, about your plan, about your environment. That awareness gives you leverage. It gives you insight that the person who never tries, never risks, never fails will never gain. And over time, the person who fails forward starts to outpace everyone who stayed in their comfort zone. They've failed more, yes, but they've also learned more, grown more, and built more. They've trained themselves to get up quickly, to recover faster, to move smarter. The truth is, failure is inevitable. No strategy, no level of preparation, no amount of talent will protect you from it. But your relationship with failure is what makes the difference. Failing forward is about direction. It's about continuing the pursuit, adjusting without giving up, refining without retreating. It's the mindset that says this moment isn't final, it's formative. It means allowing the failure to stretch you, not stop you. It means realizing that some lessons can only be learned by falling, and the faster you learn, the faster you grow. Failing forward keeps you in motion, and motion is where transformation happens. Step 6, freedom is a lifestyle, not a destination. Freedom is a lifestyle, not a destination, because it's not something you arrive at one day after hitting a goal or crossing a finish line. It's something you live through your daily choices, your mindset, and your alignment with what truly matters to you. So many people treat freedom like a far-off achievement. Once they make a certain amount of money, get the right job, retire, or achieve a particular status, then they'll finally be free. But freedom doesn't work like that. It's not a trophy waiting for you at the end of a long race. It's the way you move through the race. It's how you show up, how you decide, and how you define success on your own terms, not someone else's. Living free means living with intention. It means taking ownership of your time, your energy, your thoughts, and your values. It's deciding how you want to live and then building your habits, your environment, and your relationships around that vision. It's not about escaping responsibility. It's about choosing responsibility that's aligned with your purpose. True freedom is not the absence of work. It's the ability to do work that matters to you. It's not about having nothing to do. It's about having the autonomy to choose what to do and why you do it. People often think that freedom is just financial. Being able to afford the lifestyle you want, not being dependent on a paycheck, having options. And yes, money plays a role. But financial freedom alone doesn't guarantee peace of mind. You can be wealthy and still feel trapped in stress, in the obligations that don't align with your soul. On the other hand, someone with modest means but a clear sense of purpose, strong boundaries, and values-based living can experience more freedom than someone with millions in the bank. That's because freedom is about alignment. It's about congruence between who you are, what you value, and how you live. Freedom as a lifestyle also means letting go of the need for constant external validation. It means no longer being controlled by what others expect of you or by the fear of judgment. You choose your path not based on popularity, but on authenticity. You learn to say no, not to be difficult, but to protect what's important. You stop reacting and start designing. You become the architect of your day, your energy, and your purpose. And this kind of freedom isn't accidental. It's earned. It's developed through clarity, courage, and discipline. You cultivate it when you stop making decisions based solely on fear or convenience and start making them based on alignment and long-term meaning. You live free when you build a life around your core values, not fleeting trends. When your actions match your words. When you stop trading your peace for other people's approval. What makes this kind of freedom so powerful is that it doesn't require perfection. It requires awareness. You don't have to have everything figured out. You just have to live with your eyes open, your values clear, and your choices intentional. You measure success not by how much you own, but by how deeply you live, by how often you feel connected to your purpose, by how consistently you choose alignment over obligation. Freedom, when it becomes a lifestyle, is quiet but strong. It shows up in the way you breathe, the way you walk into a room, the way you treat others and yourself. It's not a prize you hold up once and then forget. It's a practice you return to daily through the way you think, speak, and act. So here's the truth. Thinking big, acting bold, and living free isn't a one-time decision. It's a way of life. It's choosing to rise above fear, break through limitations, and design your days with purpose. It's about being honest with yourself, daring to chase what sets your soul on fire, and showing up with the kind of courage most people only admire from a distance. You don't need permission to go after more. You don't need perfect conditions to start. What you need is a clear mind, a bold spirit, and the discipline to keep moving forward even when the path is foggy. That's where real freedom lives. Not in the outcome, but in the way you show up. Because the moment you start thinking bigger than your circumstances, the moment you start acting bolder than your fears, the moment you choose to live free, not someday, but now, that's the moment everything begins to shift. This isn't just motivation, it's a mandate. Don't shrink, don't wait, think big, act bold, live free, and do it now because your future is waiting for you to step up.